Richard stood there, holding her cat by the tail. He had killed it with a single gunshot.
Despite her horror at what her son had done, Beatrice Chase never reported the incident to police. What happened that summer day did not become public knowledge until after her son was a household name, after he had killed 6 innocent people.
Hi, I'm Greg Polson. This is Serial Killers, a Parcast original. Every Monday, we dive into the minds and madness of serial killers. I'm here with my co-host, Vanessa Richardson.
Hi, everyone. You can find episodes of Serial Killers and all other Parcast originals for free on Spotify or wherever you listen to podcasts. To stream Serial Killers for free on Spotify, just open the app and type Serial Killers in the search bar.
Today, we're finishing the story of Richard Trenton Chase, also known as the Vampire of Psycho.
At Parcast, we're grateful for you, our listeners. You allow us to do what we love. Let us know how we can. Reach out on Facebook and Instagram at Parcast and Twitter at Parcast Network.
And if you enjoyed today's episode, the best way to help us is to leave a 5-star review wherever you listen.
Last week, we discussed Richard's troubled youth in Sacramento, California, and the 2 times he was institutionalized to treat his clear cognitive issues. As a young man, he developed a fixation for discipline, insisting to doctors and his family that he was inside of him. This obsession led him to kill animals and drink their blood, which often
Richard Trenton Chase's neighbor. One of his neighbors experienced a number of deeply uncomfortable encounters. She described him as wandering around with a blank look on his face, sometimes dragging his feet behind him.
As she gives no concrete dates for these encounters, it is possible that Miss Dillon's account of the zombie-like Richard Chase took place when Richard was heavily sedated by antipsychotic medication. Richard had been given a diagnosis of paranoid schizophrenia
Hello,
in
Tim.
Beverly Manor Hospital in late 1976.
Vanessa's going to take over on the psychology here and throughout the episode. Please note, Vanessa is not a licensed psychologist or psychiatrist, but she has done a lot of research for this show.
Thanks, Greg. Part of the reason for Chase's discharge from the hospital was that a number of doctors believed he had the potential for improvement. It seemed like the medication they prescribed did dampen his more violent tendencies. Antipsychotic medication is designed to treat positive symptoms, such as delusions or hallucinations. Richard. However, the use of antipsychotics was still a relatively new field.
The terrorists win.
Also rendered him listless.
His mother Beatrice found this too hard to deal with, so she took it upon herself to wean Richard off his medication. By the beginning of 1977, Richard was his unmedicated self once again, and his strange behavior started to seem a little more dangerous.
Let's commit.
All traces of Richard Chase's so-called recovery had vanished. Schizophrenia is manageable with proper treatment, but after Beatrice took his son off of his medication, he received without any outpatient care or medication. He was
One event.
totally improved. He frequently turned violent toward his family and forbade most of them from entering his apartment. He still received regular visits from his father, Richard Sr., who, in spite of everything, wanted to make sure his son did not fall.
The terrorists
The
win.
Chase family dogs disappeared.
Who you say fuck off to me? Why?
And accused him of kidnapping and killing the dogs. Richard Jr. denied it. but his father remembered the flocks of rabbits he kept at his apartment, supposedly for eating. He was not convinced.
Richard's behavior toward his neighbors only grew more aggressive. Linda Dillon recalled a
But-
particularly disturbing encounter she had with him in 1977. Dillon encountered him in the garage of their apartment building. He approached her and asked her for a cigarette.
She gave him one, and he did not move. Blocking her from the exit, he demanded more. She gave him the entire pack and fled.
Sometime after this encounter, in early August, Richard packed up his
Oh,
Ford
heaven.
Camaro and drove to Pigeon Lake on the Paiute Tribal Reservation in Nevada, northeast.
We don't know what Richard intended to do on this trip, but somehow his pickup truck got caught in the sand.
There's.
A man, Carmen Toby Sr., saw Chase abandon his vehicle with a dog. Toby took a look inside and immediately called the Bureau of Indian Affairs.
Officers Charles O'Brien, Manuel Sabori, and
Harosh!
tribal officers Leroy Phoenix and Edward Culture
Harosh.
found the vehicle still abandoned and searched it.
You good
The
player,
interior of the
yes?
vehicle was heavily stained with blood.
Oh, nice.
2 rifles lay in the passenger seat.
You carried me
Next
to win,
them
yes?
Was a white bucket. Inside
Thank
the
you,
bucket
thank.
was more blood and a
If we win game,
O'Brien searched the surrounding
Orange
area
will
with
give you a
a
blowjob.
bloody figure of Richard Chase watching them from the distance. O'Brien wrote in his report,
Okay.
he was approximately 1/2 to 3/4 of a mile away from us. He was completely nude.
Richard turned and ran away from them towards the lake. The Bureau of Indian Affairs officers pursued on foot, while the tribal officers went to head him off in their vehicle.
Eventually, they caught up with Richard, who promptly identified himself to the officers. When asked where all the blood came from, he told them it was his own and that it had seeped out of him.
Confused by his nonsensical answers, the officers arrested Richard and took him in for holding. The dog Carmen Toby had seen with Richard was nowhere to be found.
Richard was held in custody in the Washoe County Jail, while the blood and liver were sent away for testing.
The results determined that the blood and liver belonged to an animal, not a human.
Once again, Richard's father had to drive out to pick up his son from jail. Richard told him exactly the same thing he told his mother over the phone. This was all a misunderstanding. He had spilled rabbit blood on himself and been arrested by mistake. Richard's car was impounded due to problems with the registration, but otherwise, he was free to go.
Later that summer, Richard returned to Nevada to retrieve his car. According to Miss Marcia Lewis of the Washoe County Sheriff's Department, Richard looked disheveled, but treated her politely.
This was in stark contrast to his behavior behind closed doors.
Privately, Richard was nursing a growing tendency toward violence. His yearning for blood continued to increase, and rabbits weren't satisfying him anymore. On October 1st, 1977, he bought a dog from the SPCA for $15.90. He returned on October 10th and bought another.
Shortly afterward, in either late October or early November, Richard purchased a dog from Elaine Meyer and attempted to haggle down her asking price of $25. His attempt at bargaining was unsuccessful, but he purchased the dog anyway. According to Meyer, the dog was extremely wary of him as Richard took it away.
In mid-November, Richard visited Daniel Owens, who was selling Labrador puppies for $10 each. He introduced himself as a breeder, but Owens noted that he paid no attention to sex when selecting which dogs he was going to buy.
None of it sated Richard, but he didn't have enough money to keep this up. Around the same time in November, the Sunseth family, neighbors of Richard's, reported their family dog missing.
When he saw their ad in the newspaper, Richard called the Sunseths and taunted them, saying he had taken their dog. According to Mr. Sunseth, the man on the phone sounded almost incoherent and possibly high. When Mr. Sunseth demanded to know who he was, Richard hung up.
None of the dogs Richard acquired were
December 1977, he walked into Big Five Sporting Goods and purchased a .22 caliber Luger-style pistol for $69.99.
To purchase the gun, he was asked if he had ever been admitted into a psychiatric institution. He said no. Richard was refused the gun, but there was a mandatory waiting period, which meant he could not pick up the weapon for a couple of weeks.
Short of funds after buying the gun, he called his mother to purchase a holster for him. She declined, but didn't ask further questions. She was used to Richard's odd requests and had learned not to read too much into them.
Let us go!
In fact, his mother had reason to be optimistic. 2 days before he picked up his weapon, Richard seemed to be on the verge of getting his life together. And many people were considering getting him. When they saw him, both of them his grandmother noticed, and put together a plan.
On December 18th, he went back to the store for the pistol.
โอ้ป่าไหน
He picked up several editions of the Sacramento Bee, cutting out an article from the Out and About section on dating, and circling several ads for free dogs.
Yeah, the bomb is in mid. He's coming garage. He's coming garage behind.
Senior took his son shopping,
True me.
where he bought Richard Jr. an orange Porsche that he liked.
Richard Sr. spoke to his son that December, but Richard said nothing was wrong and did not complain about
Despite the improvements, a single phone call upset the whole balance.
December, Richard's mother called and told him that he was not allowed to come home for Christmas. Though she likely didn't say why over the phone, she claimed later that it was because Richard's sister Pamela was scared of him and did not want him around.
Richard was extremely upset by this.
He's mid. Mid.
It was at this point he
Went
started
highway.
driving around his neighborhood, firing shots into random windows.
A woman named Mrs. Polinsky was doing her dishes when the street 20 inches over her head. It was only a matter of time before someone was killed. Coming up, Richard Trenton Chase tastes human blood for the first time.
Do you have a secret you take to the grave? If you do, you're not alone. Everyone has secrets in their closet, but some people's secrets are better than others. I'm host of Parcast's newest show, Death by Confessions. One of the most explosive things people have admitted to while drawing their last breath, murder, or fake identity, even government cover-ups. Deathbed Confessions is a Spotify original from Parcast, airing episodes weekly starting July 21st. Follow and listen to Deathbed Confessions for free on Spotify.
Smoke! I'm throwing a flashbang.
Now, back to the story.
1977 was a turbulent year for Richard
Be
Trenton
clear.
Chase. After his release from a mental institution, the schizophrenic 27-year-old had been weaned off his medication and relapsed. He suffered from violent and unpredictable tendencies, which climaxed when he was arrested near Lake Tahoe, full of weapons and blood. When the authorities determined it was animal blood, he was released, and he went back to Sacramento.
But that fall, his behavior became increasingly erratic. He bought a number of dogs from local sellers and stole others. He would later confess to bringing the dogs back to his apartment, where he killed and ate them. But these killings did not satisfy him, and he purchased a .22 caliber pistol on December 18th.
His
We're
neighbor
going
lived in
to
Dillon.
the-
Muffled gunshots coming from the apartment. This would strengthened to resolve to move out of the apartment complex as soon as possible. If he hadn't already, this neighbor of hers was going to do something bad really soon.
She was right to worry. On December 29th, 1977, Richard committed his first
Bullet!
That evening, 51-year-old engineer Ambrose
difficult type of crime to solve, one where the killer had no motive or physical connection to the deceased. Griffin had never met Richard Chase, so the only evidence the police had were two
There's one inside mid.
caliber shell casings on the street.
I'll be hiding.
In early 1978, Sacramento Bee ran an editorial about the killing. Richard bought a copy for himself on January 5th and kept the editorial. He seemed to enjoy reading press coverage of his killings. 11 days later, he would begin to show signs of decline. He suspected his neighbors were snooping, so he devised a strategy to get them away.
On January 6th, several of Richard's neighbors on Watt Avenue heard a loud knock
One quad,
on their door.
quad.
A moment later, they noticed smoke billowing from their garage. They found burning flames inside and quickly put them out.
Harosh.
And the police did not look far into it. His neighbors had no idea who had set the fire until months later.
Soon after the fire, Richard told his mother over the phone that he wanted to go rock hunting. Richard's father showed up that Saturday to take him hiking.
Mr. Chase recalled Saturday, January 21st as an ordinary day. He said Richard did not act bizarre, said nothing unusual, had no complaints about health, no arguments, and generally acted like a normal 27-year-old spending time with his family.
Richard Sr. had no way of knowing that 3 weeks later, his son...
I whip.
One more to your right, Blue.
On the evening of January 22nd, Richard's mother, Beatrice, and grandmother, were having a quiet Sunday in Beatrice's apartment. They were surprised by Richard's appearance at the door, and even more surprised by how long he had looked.
Before leaving, he asked his grandmother how her dog was doing. Flattered by Richard's surprisingly considerate behavior, Holly gave him $10 on his way out.
But the next day, all their hopes about Richard's new normalcy would be shattered.
At around 9 a.m. on January 23rd, Jean Layton was watching television several blocks away from Richard's apartment. She began
Toxic, toxic.
at the back of her house.
Ms. Layton stood
Can't believe it.
to see what it was. Richard Chase was sitting on her back porch, but he saw her through the window and said, "Excuse me," and asked her to let him in.
Ms. Layton promptly called the police, but only a few minutes after placing the call, the unsettling young
I was smoked off in checkers.
Smoke!
Later, Robert and Barbara Edwards were returning home from some morning errands. As they entered their home, they saw Richard Chase in the process of robbing them. He had taken valuables and had begun to fill a bag with other valuables.
Seeing the homeowner return, Richard fled, leaving through their back window and jumping over a fence. Mr. Edwards charged after
Richard yelled back with the typically strange response. That Mr. Edwards thought he was a trespasser rather than a burglar.
Richard managed to evade Edwards, and Edwards finally returned to his house. It was in shambles.
Aside from the wreckage one would normally associate with the burglary,
We will defeat the
Edwards
resident.
found that the intruder had defecated on their child's bed and
Throwing
urinated
flashbang.
in one of their clothing drawers.
Sightings of Richard Chase
Flashbang.
continued throughout the day, each one
Grenade!
Someone called her name.
There's one flank pushing B.
Saw a strange
Do we think?
orange light. He looked and noticed something crusty yellowish substance.
I'm throwing a grenade!
asked her a question that burst confusion. Wasn't you on Kurt's motorcycle when he was killed?
Kurt was her high school
I'm throwing a flashbang.
She told this man that she had not
One mid.
asked who he was. He said he was Rick. Finally, she remembered who he was. Rick Chase, one of Kurt's friends. He looked nothing like he had in high school. He was disheveled, awful smelling. A far cry from the clean-cut boy she remembered.
He broke off their conversation.
He's close to your
As
left.
Nancy kept talking, Richard approached her over and over, asking her where she was going. Behind her in the checkout line, she knew she had to get away from him.
The moment Nancy finished her shopping, she went straight for the parking lot. She jumped into her car. But Richard caught up with her and attempted to grab at the passenger side door.
He missed, and Nancy Holden sped away. Panting in fear, she checked the rearview mirror and saw Richard staring after her, not making any effort to pursue.
Nancy Holden did not report this incident for days, until its connection to Richard's future grisly actions became known.
Immediately after Nancy Holden's strange encounter, Richard Chase was spotted by another bystander. Between 11:30 a.m. and noon that day, Richard Eastlick was watching television in the living room of his house, which was located almost immediately behind the pantry market. From the window, he saw a thin white male wearing what he described as an orange ski jacket walking through the neighborhood.
And then, moments after he'd been seen, he was out of sight once again.
2 doors down, 22-year-old Teresa Wallen was spending her day off cleaning the house she shared
And
with
one
her
maybe
husband
so.
David. Teresa was 3 months pregnant, so was trying not to.
She was carrying a white garbage bag toward the door when it unexpectedly swung open, and a man stepped through. He was a horribly dirty man and wore an orange jacket. In his hand was a pistol. He raised it and fired 2 shots.
Before she could react, he raised the weapon and fired.
Highway.
He told the investigators that he heard 3 to 4 shots coming from the south of his home. They investigate. In fact, no one nearby went to check on Teresa.
That evening, at around 6 o'clock, Teresa's husband, David Wallen, returned from his long day at work.
Their house was
Hands.
scattered all over the place, and their stereo was fine. He called for Teresa, but
Rush.
A figure slunk through the darkness, moving quietly toward David. It was their German shepherd, Brutus. The dog whined. Something was wrong.
David could see the floor was spotted with large, dark, circular stains, like the ring left by a bottom of a glass or bucket. At
Throwing a
first,
flashbang.
David thought they were oil. He followed them, step by step, to the master bedroom. He opened the door and peered inside. Then, he screamed.
What he saw inside shook him to his core. Teresa lay splayed on her back, her
I don't know.
and her pants below her ankles. Her chest had been mutilated, and her torso was cut open
Once.
at the sternum. A used paper yogurt cup covered her body.
David realized he had been followed. Size and shape.
Fuck! Sorry, he's close.
Her blood dragged her out of the living room.
Panicking and inconsolable, David ran upstairs to report the horrible scene he had found in his house. The first policemen on the scene were
Sardine man. Noobs.
Before even entering the house, they noticed that the murderer had left a .22 caliber shell in the mailbox,
I know.
like a calling card.
We need to echo.
Savage was the first of 2 to lay eyes on the body, while Officer Flanagan waited on the porch with the rest of the Wallen family.
Look, how about this? We all push mid, I flash over, and then we just kill everyone.
Afterward.
The evidence indicated had sexually assaulted the body of Teresa Wallen, as well as Richard. Wilson later said the horrible state of Teresa Wallen's body was an expression of curiosity due to prolonged sexual frustration. But for the moment, investigators were unsure what to do.
The next day, on January 24th, Richard purchased another copy of The Sacrament, just like he had following the murder of
Man.
Later that evening,
Warning.
she wasn't home. Holly. According to terrorists win.
Then, on January 25th, not far from the Warren home. Richard's thirst for blood was far from sated.
Lieutenant Ray Biondi, the officer in charge of the investigation, was sure that whoever had committed the unspeakably violent act against Teresa Wallet would kill again soon.
Richard spent the next few days canvassing the neighborhood, going door to door, pretending to be collecting old magazines. The area was littered with their doors, which would seem as they called out. So, in January 27th, less than a mile away
Bonanza.
from his Water Avenue apartment, he found his next victims.
Evelyn Maroth, the Vernon, and 6-year-old
was at school on 22nd. An adult friend of Evelyn's was visiting at the time. He had just purchased Jason a pair of snowshoes. Jason
Evan,
was
maybe?
planning to go to the mountains that day with their neighbors, the grandmothers. Evelyn was spending the day babysitting her 22-month-old nephew, David Ferrara, who had been dropped off at 7
wearing the same orange
GG, go
his
next.
father had bought him for Christmas, and now also wearing gloves. Richard entered the house sometime between 10 and 11:15 a.m.
At 11:05, the neighbor girl, 6-year-old Tracy Grant